On this episode of Team Building Saves the World.
These 7 habits are in order for a reason.
Okay.
Because these skills, even though they call them soft skills, are really hard skills in order to get to creative collaboration. How can I be proactive about this and talk myself out of being terrified? You know, people say leaders are born leaders. Well, everybody's born. So
that's true. Right? You're not wrong. Hello, team. It's me, your old friend Rich Rinnensland, host of Team Building Saves the World, the show where I speak to thought leaders from around the world discussing variable strategies and tools to help you and your team build a better work environment. And today, we're going to learn how to lead with FranklinCovey's VP of Content Development and best-selling author, Kory Kogon. But first, I do have to share some love with my supporters at Team Bonding. If your team is ready to experience teamwork through the power of play, then visit teambonding.com to learn more. Now, team, join me in welcoming my guest, leadership facilitator and one of the authors of The 5 Choices, The Path to Extraordinary Productivity, Kory Kogon. Kory, hello!
Hello, Rich. So great to see you.
Oh, you as well. Thank you so much for coming on. Let's start like I usually do here to introduce you to my team out there. In this business and what it was that made teaching people how to be leaders your course in life.
Born and raised in Brooklyn, New York. Go from there. Arizona. So I've been out of New York City for many years, but that whole persona has come with me along the way. I was in sales very early in my career and was pretty good at it and started training people. And having done that, I ended up at my previous company and ended up as head of training. Work with small businesses. Okay. And so really we were training people on how to, get what they want out of the business, be profitable, have fun, be happy, all of those kinds of things. We were a FranklinCovey company. We had a 7 Habits culture. Because my contribution to the world was really helping businesses succeed. And so, business owners for the most part, and with small business, and then working with FranklinCovey, I was exposed to all types of businesses and leaders, and it really was my passion to take my practical experience with FranklinCovey's timeless principles to really help people, teams, and organizations practically implement those things that would make them better. So here I am 18 years later, every day interested in productivity and leadership and how I can help make people, team, and organizations better. So that's the story.
Nice. And you had mentioned the 7 Habits. You're speaking, of course, of the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, a book by Stephen Covey.
Well, Dr. Stephen Covey was the founder. And then that merged in 1998 with Franklin Quest becoming FranklinCovey. The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People was his life's work, and to this day remains one of the top business books of all time. It's sold over 40 million copies now, and 2,000 to 3,000 books a week. It's really amazing. And our courses over the years, the 7 Habits courses, we've had over 100 million people go through our courses. So it's been a phenomenon. And we just recently relaunched it, reimagined it, put millions of dollars into it to take those timeless principles and habits and point them at the issues and stuff that's going on in the world today.
And there's a lot.
There's a lot.
I mean, it's a very different world than it was when the book was first written. But can you give me just a broad overview of the book itself, just for my team out there who might not be familiar?
The first thing is Stephen would say there's nothing new in the book.
Okay.
They're timeless principles, but his genius was in how he packaged it all up to make it doable and accessible.
Nice.
So really the overview of it is through what he called the emotional maturity continuum, moving people from dependence, maybe feeling a little victimized, blaming everybody and everything, to independence, where we are responsible, we're seen as credible, and moving us to interdependence, where we're really valuing other people and getting to creative collaboration. All that surrounded by the fact that those 6 things are really hard, and you need to sharpen the saw. You really need to take care of yourself to be able to do that kind of work. And the 7 habits builds through that maturity continuum to really approach creative collaboration in today's world. So just in summary, he talks about through the maturity continuum, the private victory. Am I showing up as responsible? And the public victory, am I socially aware to be able to dialogue and build relationships with high trust relationships with other people to get to creative collaboration?
Nice. Very nice. Normally use this to help to educate and facilitate for ownership of certain companies. Is this something that is specifically you would recommend just for owners, or is this something that somebody who wants to maybe one day be their own owner or just be a leader within their own organization to look into?
You might want to be a leader in your family.
Okay.
So this is, at FranklinCovey, we say we enable greatness in people and organizations everywhere, and that it's all about leadership. So we say individual contributors have to lead themselves, right. First level leaders have to lead a team, etc. We are also, the 7 habits is in, I think, 7,000 schools, K through leader and me, because everybody has the ability to show up as credible and responsible, be proactive, begin with the end in mind, first things first, etc. Contributor, leader of a team or an organization, and 7 habits culture as an organization as a whole. We have a ton of case studies around that as well. So bottom line, Rich, it's for everybody.
Great. Now, I have always said through my years of facilitation, because I've been with team bonding since 2009, and I have said throughout the entirety of my career with them, I could always tell which teams are going to do well, because you can spot the one that has that natural leader. The one who not only everybody automatically just gravitates towards and listens to, but who also knows to listen to everybody else and take everybody's ideals, and their thoughts into putting together the perfect whatever exercises I happen to be going through at the time. Is it to learn to make yourself one of those kind of leaders?
So we have a saying, we did not invent it, but right. People say leaders are born leaders. Well, everybody's born. So
that's true. Right? You're not wrong.
So
okay.
And is it hard? It's sort of like I said before. I am a laboratory rat because I've been in executive leadership for almost 30 years. Even hard coming out. I'm at 30 years, right? and I don't want to show up as an imposter, like, oh, here's all the great things you should do. Just do the 7 habits. It is. I'm blessed to be able to facilitate this every day. We say, Stephen said, teach to learn, right?
Right.
So, being proactive, meaning there's a space between stimulus and response. That's habit 1, meaning, have you ever hit the send button on an email and wish you could take it back? Right. Whether at home or at work, and just learning to count to 10 before I send that email, let me just think about it. What outcome do I really want to get? As a leader, before I said, oh, you did a terrible job on that. How do I catch myself? How do I see things differently in order to inspire a team member to want to get better or fix something? So without going into all the details, it's doable because 7 habits, a lot of our leadership work is packaged in a way that it's accessible. You can practice it and you can get good at it.
Okay.
If a leader's mind, and we're all about Stephen is all about mindset and perception.
Right.
See, do, get. How I see the world is going to affect what I do to get the results that I want. This is a secret sauce of everything that we do. And so if we can get people that are open-minded to examine their paradigms and how they see the world and shift it to, wow, people in today's work only will volunteer their best efforts to be successful. I can't beat them over the head. And so I get it. If I am inviting them to be engaged, I'm going to get a completely different result. So is it hard? It's hard to do it. You got to discipline yourself to it.
Right.
If you're open to it and willing to shift your paradigm, anybody can do it.
Especially in a world like today where it seems that everybody's, because of social media or the internet at large, or everybody seems to have their own personal cheering section telling them they're always right. How do you get them from that to actually listening to another point of view? Because if, like you say, anybody can be in leadership in any way, in their own family or, their own communities. How do we get people back to listening? Because I do want to point this out. I was looking through, doing my due diligence, and I have to admit, habit 5 just sang to me. So for my friends out there, my team who are listening, seek first to understand, then be understood. That just touches the Taoist in me like no end. So how do we even possibly get that from someone?
Well, you can't force it,
right?
And you can't tell people how to think. That's the bottom line here,
sure,
right?
Sure.
The 7 habits are in order for a reason.
Okay.
And so I always like to say habit 1 is an absolute, the space between stimulus and response.
Okay.
How am I doing out there? What result am I getting? And what can I do? Stephen called it the 4 human gifts. What result am I getting? What's a different result that I want to get? How do I get there? And how do I get it done under pressure? When people are pressuring me into saying, oh no, you're always right. That kind of, I'm going with the group.
Sure.
So if we can do that and we sort of figure out what our outcome, who do we want to be out there? And then I get to social awareness of the attitude of win-win. Like, wait a minute, because when you look at somebody, you'll go, they have no EQ, because they're like, they don't see me at all, right?
Sure.
And so habit 4, win-win, mutual benefit. I see you. What's a win for me? What's a win for you? If I'm willing to be open to that and I see value in that, it's going to organically have me want to hear your point of view. So, okay. And be in your shoes. So there's a methodology to get people there. And again, you're not going to get 100. If you think about a bell curve, there's going to be people that are never going to be changed. Yeah. And you get people that are going to do it great. Right in the middle, we call them not yet. There's a lot of people that if you stick with it, that will want to do what you're saying. Last thing I'll say about this, habit 5 could not be more important in today's world. Putting yourself in other people's shoes, they're giving them space for their point of view versus just our point of view.
Right.
When we're in a remote hybrid world where people are making up stories in their head, in their office, in their home offices.
Everybody you see is only a little screen on a minor screen on your bigger screen. And
I'll give you just a very quick example that people will resonate to at home. When you are having an issue, and I'm not good enough at this in my household, I must say, but something's going on and your partner or your spouse is telling you a story and you're like, okay, but just do it this way. I can fix it for you. And they're like, stop it. I don't need you to fix it. I just need you to listen to me.
Yep.
31 years later in my relationship, I am still working on it. But boy, when you can keep your mouth shut and really just listen, because your brain's chattering away. It wants you,
right.
We're going against the way our brains are built. So it's a really important habit. So I'm glad you resonated with it.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I want to keep going on with this, Kory, because they're fascinating and there's so much more to dig into. I hope you don't mind, though. I do need to step away just for a quick second, because I need to tell my team out there about a company I am very proud to be a part of, Team bonding. Team bonding was founded over 20 years ago with one simple question. How can employees have a great time while fostering strong, authentic bonds between people who work together? No matter where your company is located, team bonding offers powerful, engaging, custom team building events designed to get the best out of your team anywhere in the world. They've created a catalog of innovative events using the power of play as a learning tool and tapping into the correlation of work and play. So whether it's scavenger hunts to Jeopardy or so much more, the team bonding of activities, whether it's live, virtual, or hybrid, maximizes the impact of team building with an accent on fun. So visit teambonding.com to schedule your event now. Team bonding, when you want seriously fun results. Fun in conversation with Kory Kogon. Kory, is it something that you would recommend to clients, or is it something that you think is kind of superfluous?
Oh, no. I think sometimes it's about the type of team that it is. But
Sure.
For the most part, when we say creative collaboration, if we are, when you think about, I like to ask this question and say, here, what do you think of this statement? Your team has no inherent right to exist.
Wow.
And everybody's like,
yeah.
Now, people have a right to exist, but it really does what it does to you, because when you think about it, why does a team exist? And a team exists to achieve an outcome.
Okay.
If you think about it, why else would you have a team?
Sure.
And so whether it's a goal or whatever. So when a team exists to achieve a goal, if we are all working in our own silos, we're all responsible. If I speak in terms of the 7 habits, we've achieved the private victory. We're responsible, but we're all working alone. Are we getting the best result depending on what the goal of the outcome was meant to be? And so that's, again, how do we get everybody up to creative collaboration? Because the best work is going to come out of synergy, where 1 + 1 = 10, 1,000, 1,000,000, because there's mind share, to use that word, where we're valuing the differences on the team. Everybody's willing to, put their ideas on the table. We're getting clear on the outcome. We're throwing different ideas. It's a safe, psychologically safe environment. And we're arriving at like, oh my gosh, we didn't even think about that, because we came together. So I don't think there's anything more important than a team and team bonding, because the results are astounding once you realize why the team even exists in the first place.
Phrases of all time, which is that emotional safety net. Like keeping yourself emotionally safe, allowing other people to be emotionally safe, emotional intelligence, especially in this world of, technology and AI. And like you say, the fact that we are so separate from each other, like you're in Tucson and I'm in Boston, and yet we could work together every day.
I was on the phone with my colleagues in Guatemala, this morning. So that, I like to say, when somebody brings up the AI words, I'm like, okay, do you have a few hours? Because this is a really big topic. And I say there's really 3 things about it. Regardless of how you get these skills done, whether it's the 7 habits, whatever, these soft skills, power skills, team bonding, all of that. First of all, a lot of people are terrified of AI still. Like, oh my gosh, it's going to replace whatever. Right. You need help. A lot of people need help in just, back to habit 1, how can I be proactive about this and talk myself out of being terrified of the new technology and stuff like that? And so how do I work in my circle of influence and not be worrying about stuff I can't do anything about? So how do I embrace it? Second, leaders, where their tasks are being replaced by technology and AI, administrative tasks, leaves them the time to learn and get better at the interactions with their people. So unbelievably important to help their people along through the changes, etc. Third, the people and the ones that are already the workers in the AI space, in addition to everybody else, are demanding these skills to be taught in the organizations that they are going to work through. I just saw a new study this morning from Deloitte that was pointing this out. We knew this, along the way, that these skills, again, however your audience gets them done, power skills, to really think about the 7 habits. If you think of Daniel Goleman's work around emotional intelligence, self-awareness, self-management, the two parallel each other, and they are more important than ever in this new world of technology.
Can you share some strategies with us? On how people can create actionable plans to achieve them, or throughout their entire lives?
Objective, but just being really conscious of, am I able to count to 10, consciously count to 10? So for me at home, it's always a little victory for me when I do keep my mouth closed, when I feel a response coming. So I can measure that. Habit 2 is begin with the end in mind. Everything should have an outcome. Every project, every meeting, my life, the mission statement's very, famous. The more you do outcomes, the more measurable it is. So if I'm creating outcomes of work, or I'm creating goals on how I want to get better at certain things, then I'm going to have, measurable outcomes. In talking with my team, did I have that conversation on that day in order to listen to them in a way that I haven't listened to them before? So I hope I'm answering your question, but you can make this very practical for each of these things, because these skills, even though they call them soft skills, are really hard skills in order to get to creative collaboration.
Can you give us any examples you've had throughout the trainings that you've given where you've seen that light bulb come on, where somebody has understood that maybe they weren't listening as much as they were hoping everybody else just shut up and listen to them, or any of the other steps that came along the way?
Yeah, I've seen it in a number, of organizations, just, not listening, but I'll go bigger than that. One of our clients, it's a big power company, has been 7 Habits culture for 25 years. They continue to teach it today. And they talk about, and this is on our website, we have a number of case studies, but they just talk about when people are equipped. The CEO was narrating this and talked about getting through at the time, Hurricane Katrina, who knew all the hurricanes we get, and just how everybody took on this mantle of leadership to really get, the New Orleans area, Louisiana, back up, to empowered in unbelievable. I mean, we have a million stories like that. The Thailand floods, etc. In our work, meaning there was another company, the Thailand floods. I mean, just these heroic, incredible stories.
Yeah.
New videos in our new course, and one of them is on where I'm sure many people can relate to this, where he doesn't want to practice the piano. And so she's yelling, like, hey, you need to practice. And he's trying to tell her that and then you see direct to camera, you see what the boy is really thinking and what the mother's really thinking. And then later you see it better done. But it is such a great example because it is visceral in seeing the mother was like, I didn't have this when I grew up, and I wanted everything for my son, and it's good for him to practice. In the meantime, he's frightened about his teacher. He doesn't like the way she hovers over him. And so, it's when you are listening, it's a great example of when you're listening from your point of view. And like I said, I'm my own example. I do that at home where I'm listening from my point of view and have to work really hard to hear my partner out.
Right.
Because a lot of times, and I tend to I have a problem with finishing sentences. Do you know how that works?
Yeah.
And so somebody will say to me, well, okay, do you want to just finish the conversation by yourself, or am I part of it? So it's like, how do you just really listen from their point of view? So I hope that gives you a couple of examples.
It does. In fact, you're, again, speaking directly to me. I've mentioned this already in the podcast in previous episodes, but I have that habit of finishing someone's sentence. because I've had many partners who just kind of trail off, or they can't find the right word. So I automatically try to fill it in for them and assume that that's where they're going. And to this day, I'm still getting notes from people going, no, that's not what I was going to say. Here's what I was going to say instead. So,
Rich, I just want you to think about the impact of that, because when you look for what's measurable,
right.
How is that harming your relationship with other people?
Yep.
Versus when they go, wow, thanks for listening to me. And, even if you didn't say a word, sometimes it's like, boy, I really needed you to just listen. I owe you. And we call that the emotional bank account. Are you making these deposits into the emotional bank account, which is a real measure? Or is your bank account really low and you really have some work to do?
And speaking of which, battled against from outside sources is that I don't want to say narcissism, but that kind of narcissistic personality type who they're always going to be the end all be all. It's always going to be, and those are usually some of the most successful leaders we have seen in the world, because they know how to get for themselves and they know how to make everybody else look like what they're doing is the way to do it. How do we get away from that philosophy? Because that's not going to lead to win-win. That certainly will lead to habit 4. So how do we get away from that philosophy and try to teach people that listening is better?
And I would, again, I'm going to say this subjectively, I'm not going to put data behind this, but you said those type of people get results.
Right.
What kind of results? Are they long-term sustainable results, or are they more short-term? And that could be, relative as well. So if you know anything about Jim Collins' work on Good to Great and Built to Last, but Jim Collins explores long-term success in companies. And if he calls them level 5 leaders, again, we don't want to label people.
Sure.
But those people that I'm the smartest person in the room, I know how to do all of this, have the longest term sustainable results, or keep the most talented people for very long, which will ultimately hinder results. So I would suggest we say, what do we mean by results first? Because if somebody can look at that and realize, because if you look at if you look at other great leaders,
right,
a lot of them, you never hear about them because they are quietly, highly successful. So I can name, I'm not going to, number of companies that are truly some of the top in the world. You barely hear from their CEOs. They're modest. They believe, and what we say, what sets great leaders apart? It's the results they get, long-term sustainable results,
right?
What they do, but their mindset and their character. Those 4 things is what set great leaders apart, and you don't hear much from them because they're modest.
Yeah. And the work speaks for itself.
The work speaks for itself.
Excellent. I have to ask you, if you don't mind, habit number 7. Where did that name come from? That phrase, sharpening the saw, and what does it mean?
Okay, so habit 7, sharpen the saw. So in the book, you'll see, you can read, the story is in the book where Stephen has 2, people with logs, and they're looking at, they're near each other. And one guy is sawing away and he's taking breaks and the other guy is sweating and sawing, and he doesn't stop. He doesn't take breaks. He just keeps going. And he's like, this other guy has all the logs all stacked up, but he's not there very much and whatever. And finally, this sweat dripping, guy who's mad at the world turns to him and said, you're not even here very much. How did you get all this work done? And I can barely get through one. He said, why? Because I stopped to sharpen the saw. Get it?
Nice. So,
So the point is, you got to stop and take care of yourself in order to do what I said, the other, 6 habits. Another famous statement that Stephen made was, are you too busy driving to stop to get gas?
Nice. I like that. That's very good. So what do you recommend, though, to somebody who needs to stop and sharpen their own saw? I mean, how do you think people can help themselves to maintain their own sense of self and therefore maintaining their productivity over time?
Well, a couple of things. First of all, what we say is, I'm too busy to do any of that.
Okay.
And really shift your paradigm to, I'm going to take care of myself as a whole person. So we look through the lens of mind, body, spirit, and heart. And
Nice.
there's actually an assessment in the course where, how am I doing, right? Because you want to label and reappraise. I need to get real with how I'm really doing with this, where my opportunity lies to take care of myself. Honestly, people are so overwhelmed today, but it's an absolute, and we have a terrible statistic in the new course now, is that over half of people, going back to what I said about the car and gas, over half the people will not do anything about their well-being until after they're already burnt out or stressed out.
True.
And so again, this is about proactivity. Habit 1, how can I be proactive to do better, to sharpen, to be able to cut wood, and take, and be my best self. Stopping, taking breaks. And again, you mentioned my book. I wrote the book, was one of the authors on the 5 Choices to Extraordinary Productivity.
Right.
We talk a lot about this and owning how I need to show up as whole and healthy. Breathing, stopping after a project, taking a walk, the neuroscience that supports pausing, taking a break. This time in the world, with everything going on, just how do I do that? How do I take time to relax? How do I get enough sleep? How do I make sure? I know it sounds like we're supposed to be doing our parents taught us this, but if you could just do one of those things, eat, sleep, move, relax, people, which is also really important to well-being, find one of those things and get started and be proactive about it.
Nice. And for my team out there who from you soon, where they're going to actually be able to be involved in one of your classes or so on and so forth, will help them to get started in taking care of themselves in this way and seeing themselves as the leader they want to be?
I think go get the book. Not only get that's how you can start. It's a great read. It's very popular. And I'll also say Sean Covey, Dr. Covey's son, one of many sons, wrote the book, The 7 Habits for Teens and The 7 Habits of Happy Kids.
Nice.
I personally, the book is, is great, right? I love the 7 Habits for Teens and Kids because it gives you the information really easily. It gives you the salient points of it. The other thing, the book, you can go to our website and learn at www.franklincovey.com, learn a lot about it. And there's some opportunities with some of our public classes and stuff like that as well.
Do you see this changing at any time in the future? Because you say the book has been out for how long now?
Almost 40 years.
Right. And the world has gone through such changes, pandemic be damned, just in growth. So what do we see the kind of changes coming forward that there might be in this kind of program?
So we just, October 28th, where time is flying, so we're 3 days away.
Yeah.
We just invested millions into reimagining our course, because the course, I told you, 100 million people have been through our courses.
Right.
We periodically reimagine it to meet the contemporary world. There's 3 constants in life. Change, which we know. Choice is that we have the ability, that space between stimulus and response, to make choices, and principles. So the habits and the principles remain constant. He always said the tougher the world, the more important the habits and the principles become.
Right.
So we've reimagined them. They're not going to change because principles are timeless laws that you can try to break them, but they'll break you first if you try to defy them. So reimagining is how we go about it. But you won't, the 7 habits remain the 7 habits.
Fantastic. Kory Kogon, I cannot thank you enough for coming on. My friends out there, please give another big round of applause for Kory Kogon. Kory, if we can, first off, did you have a good time?
I had a wonderful time. Thank you so much for having me, Rich.
Thank you. And I'm sure we could just keep going on and on and on about this. God knows the depths that all this could take. But I don't want to take your entire Friday while we do this. I do want to ask, though, you've already said the team can go onto your website, but is there a way they can find out more about you and possibly find some of the things you've written?
Thank you for asking. You can find me on LinkedIn. That's the best place to go. So go there, and I'm happy to connect with anybody and respond to any questions or thoughts that you might have. So thank you for asking. And you'll find me on the FranklinCovey Speakers Bureau as well. So awesome. On the FranklinCovey.com website. Thank you so much for asking.
Thank you, and because it's time for my speed round.
Okay.
All right, we didn't get into this in the preview. I told you that it was coming up, but I didn't tell you exactly what it was. What's going to happen is I'm going to play a piece of music for 60 seconds. That just keeps me in mind of the time. During that 60 seconds, I'm going to ask you a series of completely innocuous questions. These are just simple little questions, very easy to answer, the objective being to get to know you as well as we can within 60 seconds. If you are feeling at all competitive, we have hit 15 questions asked and answered so far this season. You don't have to do it. And this is just about learning more about you and having a good time. But if you're feeling up to it, let's see if we can get it done. You think you're up? You think you got it? Okay, let's give it a shot. We'll see how we do. And as soon as you hear the music, I'll ask the first question. Away we go.
Kory Kogon.
How many kids do you have?
0. Well, 1. That's done.
Okay. How many pets?
None right now. I lost my pet a year ago.
Oh, I'm so sorry for your loss. What is your favorite thing you've ever written?
5 choices to extraordinary productivity.
Nice. If you could have somebody play you in the movie of your life, who would it be?
Sandra Bullock.
Nice. Your favorite holiday?
Hanukkah.
Your favorite children's book?
Habibi and Yao.
Okay. What is your favorite ice cream?
Coffee.
Favorite family vacation spot?
Hawaii.
If you could choose a nickname for yourself, what would it be?
Toad.
Who's the funniest person you know?
Don Rickles.
Favorite thing about your grandparents?
I love them all dearly.
Nice. 12. 12, Kory. That's still really good. Thank you again, Kory. Is there something coming up for you that, to where people can find you or go see you or hear you speak?
Well, I just want to say, with the comedy, Don Rickles, he's an old timer. Yeah. Leanne Morgan is really my favorite today. So just by the way, Leanne Morgan. For those who are like, who the heck is Don Rickles? But it's Leanne Morgan today because I couldn't think fast enough. Ooh, is anything coming up from me? Again, you can find me on the FranklinCovey website. The other thing is we have we're launching the 7 habits around the country, around the world right now. So if you go on the site and you see some locations, I'll be hosting a few of those. So thanks for asking.
Fantastic. And thank you, my team out there. That's it. We are wrapping up yet another episode of Team Building Saves the World. If you've enjoyed this episode, whether you're a new fan of the podcast or an old fan of the show, please be sure to share it with everyone you know. Whether they're a coworker, a friend, a family member, it just helps us to share all this vital information. You can find out all about us, including all past episodes, at teambonding.com/podcast. You can also find us wherever you find your favorite podcasts. Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you go to listen, we're going to be there. And don't forget to look for us on all the social medias at Team Bond Podcast. Leave me a message. Tell me what you liked about the show, or if you have an idea for a future topic for the podcast. I want to hear from you. So, before we say our farewells for this episode of Team Building Saves the World, please never forget, my friends, that if you are within the sound of my voice, you're on my team now, and I am forever going to be on yours. So long, team. We'll see you next time.
It's been said that you learn more about a person in an hour of play than in a year of conversation. So why not put your coworkers to play with the help of the team at Team Bonding? Team Bonding was founded over 20 years ago with one simple question. How can employees have a great time while fostering strong, authentic bonds between people who work together? Their catalog of innovative events includes scavenger hunts, Jeopardy, and much more. Each activity, whether live, virtual, or hybrid, maximizes the impact of team building with an accent on fun. Visit teambonding.com to schedule your event now. Team Bonding, when you want seriously fun results.